Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola, and today I have a very, very special returning guest. Ava, would you like to reintroduce yourself and tell us why we're here today?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ava Reid. I'm the author of The Wolf and the Woodsman, which came out last year, and Juniper and Thorn, which is coming out next month in June. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me back.
I'm very excited. As you know, I love that book. It's so good. And despite how I don't know if despite is the right word to use, but I guess like despite how dark it is, I think at the end it really became like a comfort book for me because it's just such a hopeful book. So, in light of that, what drew you to reimagine the juniper tree?
Obviously, I think what is a big part of what was so compelling was like it's obviously a very grotesque story, and that's interesting on its own. But I also like thought a lot about because it has this kind of like unofficial moniker of like, ooh, the darkest, grimmest fairy tale, which is like kind of saying a lot because there's a lot of really dark fairy tales. There's child murder and there's, death and violence and all these gruesome things in fairy tales. So I was like, why is this one so different? Like, why do we see this one differently? And I started thinking about like why that might be, and I came to the conclusion that the reason it felt so much darker and was so much more disturbing to people was this intimacy, was the fact that it's violence enacted on within a family, right? So it's like a perversion of these relationships that are supposed to be loving into ones that are like abusive and destructive, right? It's the stepmother and the stepsister murder this child and then feed him to his father. That's the meat, no pun intended, of the story. And obviously, like in, these classic fairy tales, there's very, very gruesome things, but this one, obviously stands out to people as being quote unquote darker than the rest. And I really do think that it's this kind of the intimate nature of the story. And then once I kind of realized that, I started thinking about, okay, well, how do I retell this in a way that kind of honors that, what I felt like was like the heart of the story. And I was like, okay, well, I don't think an epic fantasy kind of setting is going to be right for that. And that's what The Wolf and the Woodsman was. And I really wanted to do something different. And I was like, well, the Gothic is all about kind of, the perversion of nature and like the perversion of loving relationships and the secrets within the household. And I was like, this is a perfect Gothic horror narrative.
That's fascinating because I remember when you first talked about it, I was like, darkest, let's check it out because I know
Yeah.
Disney fairy tales. I'm not like a dark fairy tale or like original fairy tale kind
Yeah.
of person. So I looked it up and I was like, ooh, this sounds
Yeah.
so interesting. I'm excited. So Juniper and Thorn is a really stunning novel about family and trauma and love and hope. So how did you approach those last two themes in such a dark story?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew that it was going to have spoilers, a happy ending, whatever that meant, and I think that obviously there's a difference between a dark story and a bleak story. And I do think obviously it is a very dark story, but I don't think that it's bleak. I think that there are obviously moments, where all seems lost, but there are those kinds of moments in every book,
Mhm.
essentially, I think. But I don't think that it's a story without hope. I think it is a very hopeful story. I don't know. I think that those elements are always just very essential to the story that I wanted to tell. It's a very kind of tight narrative. It's a short book. It's about 100 pages shorter than The Wolf and
Mhm.
the Woodsman. It has like a tight, constrained narrative. It doesn't have these kind of like there's literally, it's funny, my publisher asked me to make a map and I was like, there's literally like 5 places in the book. So it's very contained. And so I had the idea from the beginning. I knew the storyline. I knew everything that was going to happen and essentially how it was going to play out from the beginning. So I wrote towards that hopeful ending.
Nice. I love it. And that's why I'm like so sure about calling it a comfort read because yes, it's really it's hard to read at times. Like I can remember this specific line. I guess it's also because I flew through it that I didn't really like sit with a lot of the darkness. It's just like, I'm just quoting it because I feel like a lot of people are using the darkness of the story to like call it, like to put it in a box, I guess. And I just read it and I'm like, okay, this is normal for the genre. Anyway, and again, because I flew through it, I guess I didn't really have time to like really sit with the dark parts, but I remember this one specific line that like really stole my breath, and I was like, oh my god, I want to hug her so much. I want to hug Marlinkin so much. Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep going. Yeah. It's a really comforting book in that. And I love that you wrote towards that. Also, a map, but that's interesting. I know you said, I think there's an arc, right? That has a map.
Yeah, so there's a map in the UK arcs, but it's not in the US arcs. It will be in all the final copies. They just didn't put it in the US one for whatever reason. But it'll be there. I really, really like how it came out. I was like kind of averse to making a map when it started because I was like, what, like where they don't go anywhere. There's like literally 5 places that they go in the entire book. But I actually think it came out really nicely. So that will be in the final
Nice.
version.
I think, yeah, I think because of that setting, I think the book is perfect for like a play adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
Definitely.
So there's a lot of talk about quote unquote strong female characters in fantasy settings and what trauma does to victims in terms of like making them stronger and ruthless and more like vicious and stuff. And I love that Marlinkin breaks out of that box. So why did you want to write her that way?
Oh my gosh. So I feel like first of all, like I have nothing against these like strong, snarky, and who are like badass warriors, but I'm like, I already wrote that character in The Wolf and the Woodsman. Like, that's like cool. And I understand like for escapist reasons why people love that type of character and that type of narrative. But like personally, I always felt and like coming from a fandom background, I was always the one who loved the characters that everyone else like thought if the fandom called a character like weak or whiny, I'm like, that was my favorite character. Like always, like 100%. Like, oh, they're so weak, they're so whiny, they're so boring. Like, I'm like, no, I'm this character's like biggest fan. And I think that people see reactions to trauma in literature in these kind of established pathways, right? People are okay with a character who's very angry, who lashes out. You see these characters who are quote unquote badass, whatever. And like, again, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I was like, I just want to have a character who, reacts to trauma and who copes and who survives in a very different way because Marlinchen is no less a survivor than EVK or than her sisters who are, who have more of these prototypical, features of a traumatized character. And I wrote her sisters specifically in a way where you could see, like, in another book, they would be the main characters. And, she has chosen her method of survival. And her method of survival is just to be completely obedient to, everything her father says always and to serve him in every way she knows how. And that's no less, admirable, oh my gosh, or valid a way of surviving her situation. And people who find that weak or boring, like I would challenge them to be in the situation that she's in and find their own way of coping with it. But I also think it's why it's so satisfying in the end to see her take charge of her life and, come out of her shell in a real sense. Like it was so much more satisfying to write. And hopefully it's much more satisfying to read when she has this like final girl moment in
Yes.
the end.
Oh my god, I love her story so much. I don't read a lot of fantasy. I do like I used to read like the normal, not normal, but like standard YA heroine, like even freaking I guess Katniss and like Tris, even though we don't talk about her, I hate her anyway. It came out like, okay, these are great characters. I kind of want to be like them, but I'm the same as you. Like the characters where everybody is like calling boring and like uninteresting and stuff. I'm like, no, you don't see them. You're not like, why? It's just so
Yeah.
it's frustrating. And I love that Marlene Shin just is very different in some ways, but she has a lot of the traits that can like, or that will eventually, spoilers, um make her like the main character in like a typical
Yeah.
setting. Yeah. Moving on. Savas is a really incredible supporting character and a great love interest. So would you ever write something in his POV?
I don't know. I don't feel like this is not to say that like I don't love this book, but like I don't feel like this is like the kind of world that I really want to
Mm,
return to. Like I feel like very strongly this is like a standalone book because they have a very hopeful ending and I want that to kind of feel complete. And I got a lot of like flack for the ending in The Wolf and the Woodsman because it does have a kind of, like obviously not an actual cliffhanger, but it's not, things aren't completely settled. There are a lot of questions at the end, which is something that I wanted to, and I think that's a world that I would be much more open to returning to
mhm.
and exploring more of. But with Juniper, I was very much like, this is, I've said what I want to say about these characters and about this world, and I don't see myself returning to them, but I do love Save Us so much.
I love that I got to send you so many of my reactions. I was like, oh my god, this
Yes.
chapter. Oh my god, this chapter. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love him so much. But yes, don't, I mean, I wouldn't call him a himbo. I don't know about other people, but I'm like, he's
I feel
actually
like
pretty smart to be a himbo, in my
he
opinion.
is. He is, and he's like, I mean, I think part of the point of of his character is that it's so funny because there's this review, I mean, there's many reviews that say similar things about how like quote unquote over sexualized the book is, and I'm like, yeah, that's the point. He's a victim of grooming and he's been used as
That's
a
like his
sex
whole
object.
character.
Like
Yeah.
he's like that's the point of his character is that he is whatever, he is a highly sexualized and that's, his position and he's been groomed and sexually abused his entire life. So
Yeah.
like I don't
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
it's a weird issue to take with the book where it's like you're
yeah.
so close to getting it like
Exactly. Yes, 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 yes. I think, yeah, anyone who calls it overly sexualized, I don't know. Like to me, it was normal. Like I read it and I was like, okay. Been reading some of the reviews and I'm like, you make it sound like Ava wrote like an erotic horror novel. No, that's not what. And people were like, oh, if they could just like not jump each other's bones every
that
5
review is
minutes. I'm like,
fine.
there are like two sex scenes. If I aren't
Yeah,
there
yeah, literally like two.
two
Yeah, I
two
think
sex
that
scenes?
it's so interesting that people have such a strong reaction to that, so much more so than the actual like very violent
Yeah,
content. And
yeah,
I think that it's so part of my intentions with writing this book was to write like the anti-Disney protagonist. Like
yeah.
Marlinchen even has like a little animal companion as like a little
Yes,
homage to the Disney heroines where it's like because I'm like really think about what it would be like to be Rapunzel, to be completely shut off from the world, to never have any, human contact with anyone, and to be a young woman, in
yeah,
that
secluded.
scenario,
Like
you
yeah,
would be, like you would have so many, you would have a lot of, sexual desire, and your sexual desire would be, transfigured by this upbringing, and Marlinchen in particular, who's been sexually abused. Like, to me, it felt so natural to portray her this
yeah.
way. Like, of course, this would be a big part of her thoughts and behavior. And it's, again, it's just so strange that people find this so objectionable compared to the other content in the book.
It's so weird.
People are so weird, and I find that sex scenes are the one type of scene where people are like always want to establish these like rules for writing sex scenes as if, and like to me, to treat sex scenes as like their own kind of category of scene as opposed to just like any other scene that exists within the piece of the work that you're creating is like very
Yeah,
puritanical. And I
definitely.
think that that's essentially where it comes from. And like I knew that I would come up against that with this book, but honestly, it still has surprised me the amount of like not getting it.
In conclusion, I love Savas. I love Marlene Shin. I think they're both incredible. and I wish nothing but the best for them, both in the hands of readers and in the canon of your story.
Thank you.
So this is a game. It's called Never Have I Ever. So have you ever stolen a book?
Okay, not like actively on purpose, but there are definitely some like library books from undergrad that I just never returned. But I wasn't like actively like thieving
Yeah.
them, although I guess technically that counts as stealing. So, yes.
Never have I ever broken a book spine unintentionally.
Probably because I'm one of those people that like very much is like, unless it's like a super special edition, I'm like, I don't care about like dog
Mhm.
earing, whatever. So yeah, I'm sure I've broken many a book spine actually.
Never have I ever written fanfic for a popular fandom.
I don't know if I'd call it popular, but I did write like Warriors, like the series by Aaron Hunter fan
Mhm.
fiction when I was like 11 to
Nice.
13. I don't know
Nice.
how popular that was. Actually, though, I've met like multiple writer friends who were also like, "Oh my God, I also like wrote Warriors fan fiction." Like those are also like my favorite. Like those are the books that like made me want to write. And I'm like, wow, I have
Oh,
found my people.
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was so funny.
It's
Oh, yes,
interesting.
and the Hunger Games. So I was like in the OG like Hunger Games book fandom like, before the movies even came out on Tumblr. And
Look
I
at
remember,
you.
yeah, and I remember I like specifically like wrote Cato and Clove fan fiction, and I got like a lot of clapback because people were like, "How dare you romanticize these murders?" And I'm like, "Look at the book series you're reading."
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Oh my God.
I know it's very on brand for me actually.
Top tier. Yes, I would read those fanfics. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure they're somewhere on like my old laptop, honestly.
Oh, you already answered this one. Never have I ever dog-eared pages of my books.
Oh yes, I do it all the time.
Never have I ever complained about a book to movie or TV show adaptation because of how bad it was.
Speaking of the Hunger Games,
Oh,
I think, first of all, I genuinely think that these movies are going to go down as like one of the most just blatant and upsetting examples of whitewashing from book to screen.
mm-hmm.
Because it's a rather important part of the book and the world building that Katniss isn't white.
Yeah.
And that aspect is just completely erased in the movies. Peeta is also an amputee, and that's erased. And Katniss has hearing loss, and there's a lot of like disability representation that's erased. And okay, Finnick is like one of my favorite characters of all time. And I actually realized the other day that like Savas is literally just Finnick, like AU Finnick. That is like the worst cast, like worst book to movie casting ever. Like I cannot even like express the level of just like soul curdling like agony when those photos dropped of Sam Claflin as Finnick. So
Yes.
yes,
Thank you.
I
Thank you. Oh my God. Somebody else was angry about
so
it. Yes.
I was just like I like my soul left my body when I saw those pictures. I was just like no, like look what they did to my boy. Like no.
Wait, who would you have wanted to be?
Oh my God, I don't even know. I don't this was like in like 2011, like 2012, when the movies were still coming out. I don't know. There were like a lot of different popular fan casts back then. Like Jesse Williams was a really big one, which was cool. That's the main one I remembered. But I was like, oh my God, like literally like anyone else. Like, why this man? This is like
Yeah, I also don't think he is as charming
he's
as
so
like
bland and like
Finnick.
I just no.
Yeah, I agree.
Like no,
I didn't love it either. I remember people were, oh my God, I was like, he's
no.
old. I don't know. Like that
He's
was my
too
main
old,
thing.
too old, too bland. You're right. No charm, just charmless. Like, no,
No
no.
charm. And that's another thing I was angry about with Peeta rereading the books. I was like, oh my God, he's so like snarky and smart and sarcastic and funny. And in the book and in the movie, he's just like, yeah, I'm Katniss's love interest and I'm sad. And I was like, okay.
Yes, the movies are not my favorite movies. There were some
Okay.
things they did pretty well, but a lot of things were.
Not for
Those are
me.
like movies that I'm actually really hoping have like a renaissance and get like new
Ooh.
adaptations because I feel like they could do a really, really good job.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, this is like reviving so many emotions that I have about the Hunger Games.
I mean, fair enough. Never have I ever canceled plans to read.
I can't remember a specific time, but like this is definitely like 100% happened, especially like in high school.
It's just what needs to be done. Like, I'm going to say something bold here. People can think what they want about me. But I was having a sour time at a certain family event while I was reading your book that I was like, cancel the whole thing. I need to read Juniper and Thorn. Like, I don't care anymore. Like
I
everybody can
mean,
go home. I don't care about
obviously
your
I approve
feelings.
of this.
It's just really good. Like I don't know. Like I've seen some of my friends are like, I'm like slowly but surely getting through the book and I'm loving it. I'm like, how is it not just like capturing you this much? Am I weird? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think so. Hopefully, it's
It's just
I hope that it captures people and it's short. So there's
yes.
that for,
Yes.
for an adult SFF book, it's short.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, in conclusion, I don't understand why people clutch their pearls so much. It's really fucking weird. And I think that this is the type of book that really makes you think about the way we treat people in certain circumstances and why we treat them the way that we do. Like, for example, with Save Us, he's like a prime example of like how we view people in the media and why we
mhm,
think they deserve it to a certain extent. They
mhm.
deserve the sexualization of their character, not the grooming or anything. But like,
Yeah.
so I think that this is a book that really makes you think, and I think people don't like that. I don't think people like to think that much.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like, I read to escape, and I'm like, okay, but not every book is out there to escape.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think again, like totally recognize the value of like escapist fiction. I think it's like
Yeah,
great that it exists, but it's never like something that has appealed to me either reading it or writing it. And I do think that most good books, or at least books that I think are good, are books that make you a little bit uncomfortable and
yeah,
that ask a lot of the reader. Those are always the books that I enjoy the most, the ones that feel like they're challenging me in some way, challenging preconceived notions that I might have, challenging me in style and format. So that is, the kind of book that I set out to write. So
yes,
not too surprised that people are having the reactions that they have, but hopefully some people will, you know, rise to the kind of challenges set forth and
yeah,
really genuinely think about, the kind of preconceived notions they have about survivors and about
yeah,
their coping mechanisms. And just, I think about, like, in a meta sense, the, rising, I mean, it's always existed in America to a very, very strong degree, but I think that it's kind of putting on woke armor, this Puritanism now, and
yeah,
it's so pervasive in
yeah,
liberal circles, literally just conservative rhetoric dressed up
yeah,
as wokeism, which is very disturbing and concerning. The idea that, if you're depicting something, it means you're endorsing it, or that, there are all
yeah,
these rules about how you need to write about sexual assault or sexual abuse
yeah,
or rape. All of that is just conservative rhetoric dressed up as, liberalism. And that's like very concerning to see. So, in this climate, I think it's understandable that Juniper gets the backlash it does, but I do hope that it's kind of like a voice against that.
yeah. I hope so too. I don't know. I'm never gonna stop talking about this book because it's just like so good. You wrote an incredible story. I hope that with how many people are starting to really love it and really see the book for what it actually is, gives you that fuel and that ego that you need to be like, I'm a genius. I wrote Juniper and Thorn, don't you know?
Thank you.
Because
I hope so too. That would be great.
Yes. So finally, I guess we've already talked about this at length, but what do you hope readers take away from Juniper and Thorn?
I hope that they take away hope, like I said. I hope that they are unsettled because it's meant to be unsettling. It is a horror novel, but I hope that they take away, as I also said, a kind of openness about different experiences around sexual abuse and sexual violence and kind of the dynamic nature of what it means to be a victim. There's no one kind of experience of victimhood, and a lot of these very, very stigmatized behaviors or, circles of thought among victims are things that don't get a lot of page time. And I
Mhm.
hope that people are able to kind of empathize with Marlinchen, with Save Us, and, in that have more empathy for and more of an open mind towards these issues when they face them in the real world. A lot to ask of my weird little book, but we all have big aspirations for our children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just so good with words. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I try and I try with my little Instagram feed. It's like very soothing to like make my aesthetic and like make everything coherent.
Yes, I love it so much. Highly recommend your Instagram to anybody who's looking for like an aesthetic. So, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to plug?
No, I'm good. Pre-order Juniper and Thorn. If you like gothic horror in the vein of Shirley Jackson and want to read about Odessa at the turn of the century and people eating weird things and lots of cooking descriptions, that's kind of my thing is like people eating things they shouldn't eat. Yeah, and Add a Study in Drowning on Goodreads. That's my YA debut. It's coming out next fall. Really, really excited about that. And yeah, and follow Paola on all of her channels and
Thank
her
you.
accounts. Thank you so much for having me on again.
Thank you. I love talking to you. I really love your prose. I love Juniper and Thorn. You will never get me to shut up about it. So everybody might as well just deal with it and read the book. So, yes, thank you so much, Ava, for doing this with me again. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Definitely check out the description below for the buy links for Juniper and Thorn, and we will see you in another one. Bye.